Assalamu alaikum, shalom, and peace be unto you. Welcome to Perspectives of Interfaith. And my name is Zarina Shakir, and I will be your host for the program today. And we have a person that's on with us today that, excuse me, I'm very pleased to say that as we talk about perspectives of interfaith, and in one brief sentence that we've shared in previous shows, we like to say that it's an opportunity to dispel the myths and stereotypes of various faith traditions. So today, we are going to be speaking with a man who represents a particular faith tradition that we've not had an opportunity to talk about on our show of late. So let's, with no further ado, introduce our guest. And his name is Bhakti Vasudeva Swami. And we're going to call him Swami for the majority of the program. And he's a religious leader of the Gaudiya Vaishnava faith. He's also a doctoral researcher of leadership and organizational change and a scholar of the social sciences. He holds a master's degree in philosophy and education with a focus on critical and creative thinking from Akakoy, affiliated with Montclair State, which is in New Jersey. He's a scholar of international repute and presents papers at many different international conferences. Let me just say that Swami is and was born in Nigeria, and he has been a part of what is the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, which is ISKCON, what is that we're saying? The shortening of that particular organization, International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And presently he is based in the United States and travels frequently around the world to give people an opportunity to understand more about his particular faith tradition. So let me say welcome to our program.
We're happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And what I want to ask you first, excuse me, is how, well, when you were younger, before you became a part of ISKCON, what was your faith tradition and what was it that your family was teaching you as you were growing up in Nigeria?
Yeah, I was born into a Christian family, and as a young boy, I was very much involved with the Christian practice. And as I was growing up, I was basically very much inquisitive about major things that I needed to know in life.
Well, let me back up for a moment. What denomination in Christianity?
Oh, I was the Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah.
Okay. That gives us a little more clarity.
Yeah.
All right.
And so as I was growing up, I became more interested in introspection and trying to figure out things about, for instance, life after death, why there is disparity in human society, and of course, you know, the objective criterion of human existence. And eventually when I got to read some of the teachings of the leader of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, a number of my questions, practically all of the questions, intriguing things that were on my mind, they were just, you know, clarified. So I said, I think this is something that I should be able to also help in reaching out to other people. And so it was not a difficult thing for me to actually give in my life as a full-time priest and to be able to help in spreading this worldwide mission.
Okay, so let's back up again for a moment. What part of Nigeria are you from and what particular tribe?
That's a very nice, intriguing question. I am from the southern part of Nigeria, precisely the oil city of Port Harcourt.
Port Harcourt?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Right.
And that's Igbo?
Port Harcourt basically is the minority Ijo.
Ijo.
Right.
Okay, Ijo.
Right.
So, again, just staying at that particular time, were you born around when the Biafran situation occurred?
At that time, I was actually a kid.
Okay.
Right.
So, do you know or remember anything, or were you told?
The only thing that I remember as a kid was, seeing soldiers, moving around.
Seeing soldiers moving around in your particular area of Port Harcourt. Yes. I bring that up because I know that was an unfortunate and devastating situation that occurred in Nigeria, but we can come up to 2015 and speak about Nigeria is once again going through some strife and unfortunate situation. We can talk more about that in a moment, but let's just go to, let's say you as a teenager where you became inquisitive and started thinking about something other than Catholicism.
Basically, I was growing up as a teenager, and I was very much philosophically inquisitive. And one of those things that was bugging my mind was, for instance, how someone could be born deaf, dumb, and blind.
Okay. Okay.
If God was all good, or if God is all good, why should this happen to an apparently innocent child?
Yes.
So these are some of the intriguing things that were, bugging my mind.
So how about original sin?
Yeah, so when we talk about original sin, now when I read the Vedic literature, it gave me a deeper insight about, why someone, for instance, is born deaf, blind, and dumb. For instance, in the Vedic literature, there is an understanding of, something that, a concept or a construct that clarifies or that brings to bear or that resolves the issue of the identity crisis. Now, the basic thing that's happening in the world, whether it is a social problem, a political problem, a domestic problem, economic problem, or whatever it is, we may point hands or accusing fingers to someone in place or some corruption or whatever, but then the whole issue is resting on identity crisis. We don't seem to understand who our pristine identity is. When I read the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, I had this, deeper understanding that we are not just these physical bodies.
We're not, right.
And that we are also metaphysical, and ultimately we are spiritual beings. For instance, this body, in the Gita, it is mentioned that this body is composed of 8 elements. The earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and the false ego. And beyond these 8 elements, there are the 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements. Now, beyond these gross and subtle elements is our real personality, the spiritual entity, the spirit soul, which is part and parcel of God, which is part and parcel of Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, whatever we call it.
So, in your spiritual tradition now, you honor the names and maybe even some of the religious beliefs of other religions?
Of course, we don't discriminate.
Okay.
We honor and make some input to that effect.
Yes.
Because what traditionally happens is that when we respect the beliefs of other people, when we honor other people based on their pristine identity, there will generate or there will be a harmony in society. It's like if you have 3 kids in your home, one of them is doing a postdoctoral program. One of them had just finished his or her graduate studies, a master's. And one of them is still undergraduate.
Okay.
Now, all of them are pursuing education. But then with time, each and every one of them will come to graduate to a point where they will have a greater understanding of their field and a greater understanding of the world. So that is basically what happens with some of these ancient literatures, which are not really known to a majority of people. So when we read the Vedic literature, just like the Bible and the Quran, they point out one thing, that there is a creator. Well, some people may say, well, I don't believe in creationism. That's all right. If you have some alternative practical approach to, to present to us scientifically, then okay, we can buy that idea. But then the bottom line is that we as humans, we are not just this physical body, we are also spiritual beings, and we should cater for the needs. We should cater for the needs of the spiritual entity also within this body.
So how do you explain then obviously physical, all of this, body, flesh, blood, all of that is physical, but how do you explain to someone that spiritual side?
Yeah, the spiritual side, again, we have that understanding that is elaborately described in the Vedic literature. And there are people who have also realized their spiritual identity. For instance, the spiritual aspect of the human condition or the spirit soul is basically characterized by eternity, bliss, and knowledge.
Eternity,
Bliss, and knowledge.
So break that, you just broken it down, but explain what that means for us.
Eternity means that the spirit soul, which is fragmentally parts and parcels of the supreme absolute truth or the supreme Lord, is not something that is annihilated or it faces some annihilation. In other words, he is someone who is eternal. In other words, if he leaves this body, again, he's still existing. He only gives up this clothing that he is using.
The flesh.
Yeah, the flesh.
The flesh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is eternity. And when we talk about bliss, we are all looking for, joy. We want to be happy. Why? How did we get that idea? Because inherently, the nature, our pristine nature, is that we are meant to be blissful. We are always looking for happiness. We are looking for joyful situations. That is because the nature of the spirit soul is bliss.
Now, if this is true, Swami, we're looking for happiness, we're looking for bliss, we're looking for peace, hopefully, then why are we in such a violent state at this particular time?
That is a very nice question.
Okay.
Now, when we say violence, we can't really deal with violence or the concept of violence without understanding, again, the root cause of violence. Now, according to American Psychological Association, violence means when we hurt someone or a group of people,
Okay.
or a group of living beings. That includes even the animals.
Yes.
And according to the principle of requital epistemology, requital means you throw a ball to the wall, the ball comes back to you.
Okay.
So if we want fair play and justice, we have to be fair. We have to justify all the things that we do. We have to act according to the needs of the situation based on the individuals around us. If something I'm doing, I should be able to ask myself, is this something that is going to benefit everyone else? Now, requital means that has a basic connotation, a basic connection with violence. Now, if we are violent, or we hurt other people, or we hurt even animals, or whatever it is, any living entity, a body, soul that has sensation or feelings, if we hurt such a person or any being of that nature, and if this accumulates and we are expecting something else, we are expecting non-violence, it means that we don't really understand what we need, because what we give into the atmosphere, what we put in, if we plant, for instance, peanuts, we are going to always harvest peanuts.
Right.
So if we are violent, then the violence also will accumulate and later fall on us in the form of other forms of violence, like wars and other type of things. Therefore, it is important for us to understand that championing causes of peace is a good project, but we have to take into consideration what is causing the violence in society. Violence breeds violence.
Yes.
Therefore, if we want a peaceful society, we should try not to be involved in hurting any being.
So then what you're saying too is if violence begets violence,
Yeah.
then peace should
Begets
beget peace.
Exactly.
And but when you've got people from very young ages now even that are bullies
Yeah.
and whatever else name that they're calling younger people and older people, when you've got leaders in the world that are promoting wars and they are saying that we are trying to achieve peace, but through a bomb, through a missile, through a drone, through all the guns and knives and whatever else that's there. So then what you're saying is if you're putting all that out and expecting to get peace back, you're not going to get it.
No, that's not possible.
Right, okay,
That is a principle of requital.
okay.
We throw a ball, it's a boomerang. We throw a ball
Boomerang,
to the
right,
wall,
right.
the ball comes back to us. It's a simple thing. We throw a ball to the wall, the ball bounces back to us.
So then what's wrong with with people? Why are they not understanding that if you are constantly at battle with someone, whether it's your sibling, family, your community, your country, the world, why do people not understand that? And where would they begin to get this teaching, this learning, to understand how to achieve peace?
The first thing is that, your first issue you raise is why don't people understand this?
Yes.
I mean, take for instance, if we are doing mathematics in high school, we have what is called, say for instance, additional mathematics. We have what is called the principle of gradient. Now, if you start teaching gradient, if you wonder why a kindergarten student wouldn't understand gradient.
What is gradient? I'm going to ask you myself right now so that I understand.
That is a higher principle of additional mathematics.
Okay.
And so in the ordinary phase of teaching kids, we teach them arithmetic. 1 + 1 is equals to 2.
Yes.
Gradually, they will understand that. We don't expect kids in kindergarten to start,
with trigonometry and calculus.
racking their brain on
Right.
gradient, additional mathematics.
Okay.
So the problem we have is that a number of leaders in the world do not understand the higher principles of life. And therefore, it is a problem because they are the ones to lead the people, and if they don't have higher understanding, they can also instill in people those higher principles that will guide society towards peaceful and harmonious existence. This is the main problem. It is because people are not having the same type of consciousness. See, we may find that people, everyone, they have 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and all this. But the consciousness, the level of reasoning, the level of thinking, the critical and creative thinking skills are completely different.
Again, Swami, not to interrupt you on the flow that you've got going here, but for me to understand and for others, as you're talking about this higher consciousness, and let's say American education, which may be, and I know it's different than in other parts of the world in different ways, and they spend so much time repeating the same thing from kindergarten to the 12th grade, learning the math and the history and the science, some of the sciences, and whatever the curriculum is made up to be. So we're not teaching young people how to be better people in schools, let's say. We're not teaching them how to be parents. We're not teaching them how to have good marriages. I mean, all the things that a person or a couple or a family needs to know is not even taught. So how would you ever get to this higher consciousness?
That's another nice point. Here is the case. You mentioned about family. And we have to understand that we are sending kids to school. eventually they will become young adults or adults, and they will have a family. And the family is a microcosm of the society of the nation.
Yes.
So if our families are dysfunctional, how do we expect people, the products of this family, to be functional out there, functional leaders out there? It doesn't work in that way.
No, it doesn't.
Therefore, we should at least also integrate spiritual science, spiritual principles in our curriculum.
Now, when you say, let's
At
say,
least moral values.
okay, but when you or I may be talking about values and incorporating them within our educational system, you're going to get a lot of pushback because people are not all on the same page.
Sure.
They're not practicing the same, let's say, religious life or faith traditions. There's even within, again, with families,
Differences.
there are people that are not even trying to achieve what I'm hearing you say. I'm going to back up for a moment and we'll get back to what I was just trying to go to. When you first decided to come into this particular thinking and your way of life, the Krishna consciousness, what did your family say in Nigeria? Because I don't recall, even when I lived in Nigeria, that Krishna was, you know, a faith tradition that was being practiced that much in Nigeria.
Yeah, your question again is very intriguing. That's why I was actually giggling. Yeah, what was the reaction from my family, or what did they say? Yeah, initially, because I became a full-time priest when I was working with the judiciary, so I was an adult. I was an independent thinker, and I remember vividly because I was asking intriguing questions right from childhood, and in most cases, parents and even in the church, they couldn't really answer my questions. So I remember when I was 20 years, you know, my mom came to me one day and said, "Hey, you're a big boy now. When you are growing up, you disturb everybody, you bombard everybody with questions. Now you're a big boy. Go into the world and figure out answers to your questions."
Well, you were a man, not a boy, but okay, that was what.
So, you know, the parents always call even they're grown up, they're old kids. Whether you're 35, they say, "My boy" or "my girl."
Yeah, yes, of course.
So that's why she addressed me in that way. And when I was working with the judiciary in Nigeria at some point in time, and I met these Christian people. I got their books, and when I got practically all of my intriguing questions answered through reading some of their books, I decided, okay, this is what I should help in, you know, creating a positive change in the world, because a lot of people are deficient of this knowledge. They don't have this understanding. So my parents, they aligned with it because they saw that right from childhood. I was like, you know, very much, I wanted to know things. And I was not having, you know, that type of information to feed me. And so when I got this, and I told my parents, this is what I intended to do, and they gave me their blessings. You know,
Okay.
right?
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously that's a good thing. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I do.
And are any of them a part of the Krishna consciousness?
Because I joined when I was an adult, a number of them, they are already highly involved in the Christian tradition.
I see.
But they respect what I'm doing, and some of them are even practicing part of what I'm doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when one thinks about, as I recall, when I lived in Nigeria and I was in Ikeja, and I do remember that the three particular tribes that actually, the different faiths, there was Yoruba, the Igbo, and Hausa.
Sure.
And so we were talking also about what was traditional religion and Christianity and Islam. And I'm thinking that as all of that was in a part of Nigeria, there's it seems as though there's definitely room for improvement there and everywhere.
Sure.
Everywhere.
Right.
And, you know, it looks like we're getting ready to go to a break right now. So I'm going to try and remember where we are with this so that we can further this discussion.
All right.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We are here, Perspectives of Interfaith. My name is Zarina Shakir, and we have a brother here who's a part of the Krishna consciousness, and we're going by Swami. He has a fuller name, and we'll go back to that once we come back to the show. Thank you. We're taking a little break. Assalamu alaikum.
The research here at St. Jude is very important. It gave my daughter a second chance at life.
Because we have donors that believe in what we're doing, we can really move our research forward much faster.
St. Jude is working to drive the overall survival rate for childhood cancer to